Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of the Overseas Famous podcast. I am here with a very special guest, legendary in the NIL market, legendary student athlete, Sabrina Oostburg. Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a lot to talk about. Your just career is fascinating, and what you've done to market yourself is just incredible. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
So we talked a little bit about this before we hopped on about your marketability, and we had talked before just about how when you were getting offers and you got like a D1 offer, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, how am I going to leverage this? And you leveraged it into incredible NIL deals. Can you take us through that process? And was that something that was always in your head? Like, how can I make myself the most marketable human possible?
Yeah, so I don't think that becoming a marketable person was my number one goal. I think that's just something that came out of an outcome of just trying to get my name out there on social media. And so I have a background of 2 years of content creation before NIL came out.
Yep.
I was making fitness content, the typical gym rat stuff like day in the life at the gym, the motivational gym content. I was your complete gym rat and I loved it. And I totally have worked up to that, and my goal was just to inspire younger versions of me to just inspire girls to work out and get into the gym because it is kind of intimidating if you don't know what you're doing. And I just saw that there was a whole bunch of girls who didn't know what they were doing. So I was just trying to teach them what it's like so that they could go in there, which is very different from the kind of content I create now. But that was my start in creating content.
That's really cool because and you've had a lot of content with that COVID era, because that was the time when a lot of these things started coming to be, because people were just like, okay, I can't do this, I can't do this. I watched some stuff where you were like sneaking in the back doors of gyms, still trying to get in. So you kept to that commitment, but then you also inspired other athletes, which is really cool because during that time, everyone was looking towards. It's weird because like everyone looked towards someone else. They're like, that's when I think the switch turned to be like, okay, I can handle things. And then it's like, okay, I might need help with this. You almost open yourself up to seek advice, and you were looking more on the internet, and there were so many content creators, and you're like, I can relate to this. And a lot of people could relate to what you were saying.
I definitely agree with that. And going on to like the content I create today, to understand my content now, you need to understand my background and where I came from. So I'll start sharing more about like my story and who I am. So I'm originally from San Diego, California. Lived there 16 years, born and raised, sunny San Diego. And if it was 55 degrees outside, that was cold. So everyone's out there in heavy raincoats and jackets, and we're freezing. And now I live in Tennessee, and it's probably 30 degrees right now and
Exactly.
outside in a t-shirt and shorts. But I lived there, and then 2020 happened. This was COVID year. My
Mhm.
mom saw a YouTube video. It was titled Top 10 Reasons Why to Move to Chattanooga, Tennessee. She liked all 10 reasons so much that we actually sold our house within a week, drove across the US, and now we live in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Wow. And you lived there your whole life, like your
I
family
lived
was
there
from.
my whole life, and we saw a YouTube video. We're like, "Yep, that's it for us. That's the perfect reason for us to leave." And if you ask us today what those 10 reasons were, we don't remember a single one of them.
Yeah.
We just know it was a really good YouTube video.
I was about to say, the person you should leave a comment under that YouTube video and be like, you inspired me more
We
than you would
actually
ever know.
It was really interesting because it wasn't like a super high-tech YouTube video. It was very basically made. And the guy that created it, he was a realtor in Chattanooga. So we actually ended up meeting him in person when we moved there. And we ended up not finding a house through him, but it was really cool. We're like, hey, we saw your YouTube video. You're kind of the reason we're here. And so he got a good kick out of that. But during COVID, this was the height of it. And so we were basically paying to live in California. To
Yeah.
give you some more background in that, and to live in California, it's expensive, man.
Uh-huh.
Super expensive, and especially where we lived. And so we're like, we don't know if we can do this for a while. So it just made more sense to move. So when we did see that video, that's when we had more of an open-mindedness to it because
Yes.
we're like, okay, it's a lot cheaper in the South. And
I was there things that you missed about California? Like, do you like the sun, the beach? Are there still things that you're like, Tennessee's cool, but
yeah,
I
like
do like
when I moved
California.
to Tennessee, I tell people it's like moving to a different country, but they speak English.
Yes.
It's so different here. When I first moved to Tennessee, I couldn't understand what anyone was saying because everyone's accents were so thick. And
Uh-huh.
I transferred my junior year of high school. So I went to high school in Tennessee and I had no idea what anyone at my high school was saying. It was very more like a hick area where everyone had a deeper accent.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, like this is so different here. And then I started to think about those things I miss. Like in San Diego, we had this delicacy called carne asada fries. Are you familiar with that?
I know a carne asada. I've never had them on fries before,
Oh
but I'm
my
writing
gosh.
it down right now.
To describe it to the audience, if you don't know what carne asada fries, you have to get this every time you go to like California. Imagine it like a bed of French fries, layered with sour cream, guacamole, cheese, and then carne asada, which is thinly sliced steak that's
Yeah.
marinated with lime or lemon. And then
Oh,
a real California burrito is a tortilla that's filled with all the carne asada fries.
yeah. Wow.
And
That's
oh my
incredible.
gosh, it was amazing. You know, after church on Sundays, you don't go to, I don't know, some nice little bougie place. You go to a taco shop and that's what you get. That was normal from where I was from.
See, that's what I like the little tips because I always say like you don't know it's like people want to hear all of the like I'm from right outside of Philly and like where's the best places to eat? And I would say like not the places that you're thinking of, not like the big time places, but this little piece of shit shack over here is
Right.
amazing food and you won't get it. And that's kind of how I think those little known places, that's what makes that home because you have those little
Exactly.
things. Have you found
Exactly. It's
something like
always,
that? Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No, I was gonna say it's always those little hole in the walls that just
Yep.
looks like it's not the best and it's always the best. I definitely agree with you there.
Have you found something, equally as delicious in Tennessee that's like its own little delicacy?
Yes, yes, just different. Because from where I live more in Chula Vista, so I live 15
Okay.
minutes away from the border of Mexico. So
Okay.
when I say I had authentic Mexican food, it was
Mm,
very authentic. And
yes.
when you talk about other things that I miss from California was surfing. The beach was a really big part of my life. I went surfing every Tuesday. That was part of how I was active. And then you come to a landlocked state like Tennessee, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, what's this lake life about?
So you surf. See, this is where my like weird fears come in because I'm like a big guy. I'm like 7 feet tall, but I'm terrified of sharks because
Really?
I always like think I'm like if I can, and this is gonna sound freaking ridiculous, and people are gonna make fun of me about this. I'm sure I'm
Say
gonna
it
get a ton
though.
of comments and stuff. But like, put a bear or something in front of me. At least there's like a fighting chance. At least I can be like, okay, I'm like, we're on even ground. Like a shark, there's like nothing I can do. It's it's just underneath me. I'm like completely helpless. So I always think like sharks scare the shit out of me. When you were surfing, was that ever something you thought? I feel like surfing people with that surfing mindset don't ever think like that. They're like, yeah, they're just
Yes,
part of the
you
ocean.
know, yes and no. I don't think I was really deep into those places where it was really a big fear. I don't think I was that deep out in the ocean, but in the back of my mind, I would think of the movie Bethany Hamilton, Soul Surfer,
Yeah.
and think about how it could just bite your arm off. I'm like, man, like if this just happened to me right now, I don't know what I would do with just one arm, but
Yeah.
that would be
Those are
crazy.
the thoughts. Those are
Yeah,
the
and
thoughts keeping you going.
real.
Just
And then continuing on with the conversation, before I moved to Tennessee, during COVID, I saw this documentary that was a 2015 Reebok CrossFit Games.
okay.
And if you don't, are you familiar with CrossFit at all?
Yes, and I think I saw exactly the documentary. It was like I remember watching that documentary and being like, "Holy shit, this is awesome."
It inspires you to work out, doesn't
It
it?
really does, yeah. And I
Yeah, and
like the whole like culture and everything like that.
The CrossFit culture is something else, man. And I saw that documentary, and that exact film that you saw was the exact film that inspired me to start CrossFit.
Oh,
And
that's
I started
awesome.
in CrossFit for 2 years. I started in California, and then the day after I started CrossFit, I also started doing Olympic weightlifting because
Okay.
they're very connected
Yes.
sports. And my best friend, she just so happens to be a 3-time junior national Olympic weightlifter. And she goes to the same gym that I decided to sign up for. And so that was really cool. And so I would go with her every Tuesday, Wednesday, and we would work out at the barbell club right after I do my CrossFit class. And so that was really cool. And that's really essential to know, though, before I moved to Tennessee, that I have this background in CrossFit and lifting. Because
Mhm.
once we moved to Tennessee, we didn't know anyone in Tennessee. So
Yeah.
when we're looking for a house, we actually chose our house based off which CrossFit gym I wanted to go
I
to.
was going to say, yeah, you have to kind of prioritize the different aspects of your life and where these things are.
And my parents knew that it was a really big part of my life. I would wake up at 4 a.m. to go work out at this gym. And so they didn't want me to drive these really long distances to the gym. So that's why we decided to live somewhere that was close by. And where we ended up living was a really good place because we had our CrossFit gym, we had the high school that I was going to go to, and the church, and all the different stores, all just ducks in one lane. And they weren't super far from each other. And it honestly worked out very well for my family. So then I continued to do CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting as I transitioned into Tennessee. And then I was like, you know what? I want to make some more friends. So why not join the high school track team?
Yeah.
I joined the track team, and before I did track, I was like, okay, like I used to be a 1-miler when I was a freshman in high school. At this point, I'm halfway through my junior year, but I was like, yeah, I used to do the 1 mile in California, super good at it. I came from a high school track team of 300 kids.
Oh, wow.
300 kids. So everyone did only one event because you had 7, 8 people per event. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that was what I'm good at. And so I come to a school of 30 kids on a track team. I go up to my coach. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be your best 1-miler because that's all I knew how to do
Yeah.
other than, lifting. But at that point, when I was talking to him, I hadn't run in over a year.
Oh,
So I'm
shit.
thinking I'm still in really good shape. And I
Yeah.
go up to my coach. I'm like, hey, you know, this is what I'm gonna do. And he started laughing. He was like, you know what? You would be a really good thrower. And I've always thought about throwing in the back of my mind, but I just didn't think that was for me. And so he was like, it's okay, go on a 3-mile run with the cross country team, see how you like it. And so I went on this run, and right after I finished it, I very instantly realized I did not like running.
Yeah.
And I immediately retired from running right after that. And I was like, I don't know what I was thinking. You're a really funny coach.
I think I learned that in like fourth grade. I was like, I think I hate running. just kind
Yeah,
of stuck with me for a long period of time. But
it,
yeah.
it is really funny how that works. So the second day that I came back to practice, I was like, all right, coach, you got me there. I'm going to start throwing. And lucky for me, we had a really good throws coach. His name is Coach Parks. So thankful for him. And he taught me how to throw. And so after 2 to 3 months of just learning this sport, I ended up going to states. And so then I then placed top 6 in the state of Tennessee for a shot put
Wow.
after just picking this up. And I really do give that credit to my coach as well as my background in CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting,
Exactly. Yeah.
because there's not a lot of high school girls that compete and train at the level that I do. I was waking up at 4 a.m., going to CrossFit for 2 hours, going to school, going to track practice after school, then going to get a lift in. Not a lot of girls are doing
No.
that. And so it made me stand out and just gave me a lot of strength, especially doing a strength sport like such as shot put. It just made me stand out. So that was really cool.
When you go into like when you like have to throw, because and we'll get into this because you obviously throw multiple things, but like having a coach that can teach you is so important because if you've never thrown before, you can injure yourself badly. Because as strong as you are, it's all about the technique. So
Mm-hmm.
like learning that technique and then learning how to not only throw this, but throw this and throw this and then run this and jump this. Like you do so many different things that you need a strong coach to really teach you. So when you said, a coach, because I know I've had coaches in basketball that have changed my life because they taught me things that no one else had. And when
Mm.
you have that coach that like inspires you so much and teaches you the things that you need to be successful, it's hands down the most important thing you can have.
For sure. And along with that, I think a coach that knows how to speak to you is
Yeah.
really important. I've had multiple coaches over the years, and I bet you can relate as an athlete. And there's coaches that know how to talk to you in a specific way, and that's just their natural way of communicating. And there's other coaches that are not so good, and you're just like, man, we're just not clicking because they don't know how to explain it in a way that I need to hear it.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's there is. And when you have that right coach, like you said, everything about this Tennessee trip seems to make sense. And like you always say, like there's destiny and things like that. But finding that right niche, finding that right gym, finding that right coach just keeps propelling you on a trajectory. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have 3 brothers.
Are they older or younger?
So I have 2 older and 1 younger.
So when you guys moved, were they like, yes, we want to be part of this decision making, or it was just like, all right, Sabrina, where are we living? And you're like, I want to live here, and they're like, oh, I guess we're all on.
Honestly, for the rest of my family, they're just kind of open to it. My oldest brother, his name's Sebastian, he's in the military. He's in the Army right now, currently serving in Korea. So he was not living with us when we were in California, so we did not have to worry about him. We're like, okay, like he still has a place to live if he comes back.
Yeah.
And then my second oldest brother, his name's Julian. He was living with us. He's 2 years older than me, and he was just finishing up high school. So we're thinking, like he'd go to college wherever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we weren't too concerned with that. It was more up to me just because my mom always thought that once I finish high school, they're going to move somewhere.
Yeah.
But just because of COVID, it kind of just sped up that process.
Yes.
But the real thing was my little brother, because he's 2 years younger than me, and he was just finishing middle school.
Okay.
And so we're like, okay, we want it to be a smooth transition for him. He's not really good with change, but we told him that if he moved, we'll get him a dog. Which we ended up getting him a dog. So he got a puppy. Her name's Bailey.
Nice. What kind of dog?
I don't know how to explain her. She's not like a typical dog, but I would say she's more like a farm dog, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
She's really good with herding animals and has
great.
those natural tendencies, but she's such a sassy dog for real.
Oh, it's crazy because I just think of my kids. If I was like, hey, we're moving, but we can get a dog, they're like, what else? I'd be like, that's it. They'd be like, we're not moving.
Yeah, we just went to Petco and we're like, cool. You guys have any dogs?
We are going across the country. Pick a dog. You're like, all right, sounds good. That's a great strategy.
It worked for him. He was like, sounds good, because our family has always wanted a dog, and my parents were just like, no, because they had traumatizing experiences with their dogs dying. They're like, we don't want to go through that. So we're like, but we do.
Yeah, we're good with it. We're good. I feel like that's like my wife. She's just like, she didn't want a dog because she was afraid that, like, she's like, I'm afraid of when it dies. I'm like, yeah, but like, what about when it's alive? Like, it's just incredible. I was like, enjoy the time you have with it. Like, don't worry about when it dies. Like, worry about when it's alive. That's awesome. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we got like 15 years.
Yeah,
so
I mean, there's always pros and cons to think about when you're getting anything new. So
exactly.
But going along with the story, after I went to state and I placed, I actually got spotted out by Austin Peay State University, Division I school in Clarksville, Tennessee. They're about an hour away from Nashville after going to state. So I'd only done the sport for 2 to 3 months. Next thing you know, this college just reaches out to me and they're like, hey, like, we'd love for you to come here. I'm like, man, I just started this sport. And at the time, track was not my main sport. I did it purely as a hobby.
Yeah.
My main sports for me was CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting, and I also dabbled in Spartan racing. So I was a quadruple sport athlete. I traveled all around the U.S. to compete in different competitions. I went to Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania. I was traveling all around just to compete in these different lifts. And I was so involved in it that in 2022, I actually became the Tennessee state champion for Olympic weightlifting.
Wow. Sabrina, I'm just going to say too, you are awesome, but your parents are freaking badass. Like they are because I always say, like, with elite athletes, you have to have good parents, because you have to have parents who are willing to sacrifice and do things that they might not want to do. And their weekends are never going to be the same. So your parents are awesome. I've never met them, but they're awesome. So good.
Thank you. I definitely agree. And they've traveled with me all around too. I know when I had the competition in Michigan, my mom flew with me. She was my little camera woman and making sure I got some content so I could post for my social medias. And I really appreciate just having the support always in my back corner. And every track meet, every event I had, they always attended. So I really appreciated that backbone support from them.
That's incredible. So you
Yes.
you went to Austin P. You get the recruitment from Austin P, and then that takes you kind of into this like whole new world that you're about to explore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was really crazy when they offered the scholarship to me. I wasn't really thinking about college. I know there's something that people always are like, okay, where do you want to go to college? And I really didn't know because I just had this giant transition of moving that I'm like, what are the colleges here that I should attend?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't really thinking about that. I was really like, okay, sports, sports, sports. That's all I wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
And because I was so invested in CrossFit, the world's largest CrossFit gym, CrossFit Mayhem, is located in Cookeville, Tennessee,
Oh
which
wow.
is about an hour and a half away from Nashville, like east way. And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Tennessee Tech, which is 5 minutes away from the gym, just so I could go to this gym.
Yeah.
Because, I already moved across the country and now we have our house based on it. So I was like, it would work again.
Uh-huh.
But then when I got that scholarship, I was like, well, it's a tiny town in the middle of nowhere that all you do is work out there. And then Austin P, it was just bigger. It had there, I just decided that track would pay more for my schooling
Yeah.
versus CrossFit because CrossFit's not really an NCAA sport.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, when I realized college athletics would be a really good pathway to go down once
Hmm.
I started thinking about which college I wanted to go to. So then when I started going to Austin P, I really liked it. It was different from anything I've ever experienced because I'm a freshman in college. You're experiencing all the new things. But that's where I had to change my content.
Hmm.
As I previously mentioned, I was making all this fitness content. I was able to film in my gym, all that stuff. But once I went to college, we were not allowed to have our phones at practice. We were not allowed to bring them into the weight room. And so I'm having this whole moment where I'm like, what am I going to make my content off of if all my content is based around workout stuff?
Yeah.
I can't film that at all. And so then I decided, okay, what can I do to keep this going? And that's when I started having new pillars around outside of my sport. Because lots
Uh-huh.
of people talk about their sport, but I started to showcase more outside, more the funny content, relatability, comedy, and start coming up with skits just to make it fun and just more interactive with my audience, showing them that, hey, like, even though I'm an athlete, I could still relate to you and I understand what it's like and just relating to other athletes. And now in my bio, I how I market myself is as you're relatable to you an athlete. Because I
Yes.
want people of all different kinds just to know like, hey, we're still relatable. Yes, we have this different lifestyle than you, but we still go through a lot of same similar
Exactly.
experiences.
Yes.
So that was a big thing. And then continuing on, I went there for a year.
Uh-huh.
That's important to know because I didn't go, I'm not there currently anymore. At the end of the year, my coach ended up quitting. I'm
Uh
not sure why, like very end, this is end of May. And so I'm not sure how you, if you are familiar with the transfer portal and how that works, but you only have a certain time frame to transfer. And when
yes.
he quit, I probably only had 2 weeks left in the transfer portal. And so my head coach was like, hey, it would be in your best interest to enter the transfer portal. And so I'm like, okay, because they told me they weren't going to get a new throwing coach. And in track and field, like it's very common to have coaches that are not completely paid. Like
Yes.
they're just voluntary coaches. And I did not know when I signed up for that school that he was a voluntary coach.
Wow.
And so that was a big thing. And so he left. I'm like, okay, enter the transfer portal. What schools am I going to go to? I started looking at Duke, Kennesaw, Tennessee. And I was also looking at Belmont because I'm like, okay, interestingly enough, another girl that went to Austin P, the year that I went to Austin P, she transferred to Belmont. And she was a thrower just like me. So I reached out to her. I was like, hey, like, I know you used to go to school I just came from. I would love to know, like, if it was a good experience to move. Do you like the school? And we ended up having a lot in common. And she had very similar experiences to me. And so I'm like, okay, it was a really good move for her at Belmont. She loved the school. So I'm like, cool. if it was a good move for her, it would be a great move for me.
Yeah.
And so I connected with the coach, really like the coach, the team. They have a very tight team here. I would say because it is a private school, it's a smaller school,
Yeah.
but it's still just as small as the other school I came from at Austin P, because it is a public school there, but it was about the same size of students that
Hmm.
attended. And so I really like that small school aspect. And another thing I was looking at Belmont was my major. At my other school, they didn't have my major at all. I wanted to work in
Wow.
sports. So I had to get a communication major and then minor in sports. Here they have something called sports administration. They have 6
Yes.
other majors around that. They have a social media major.
Oh, that's
They have
great.
sports management. They have all these different things. And on top of that, you're living in Nashville. This is Sports Center. You have
Exactly.
Nashville Predators, Tennessee Titans, 3 Division I schools. You have the soccer team. You have all these things
That's
going on.
incredible.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, it just became more of a no-brainer for me to move, because I'm like, you just see all these opportunities that are just there for me. And I just thought, man, if I want to get there, I just need to transition there first.
Yeah.
And so that's why I decided to go to Belmont, and that's where I currently am. I'm a sophomore here today, and I really love that I'm here. It's been an awesome transition for me.
You've gone on quite the journey from California and all over Tennessee. It's just but I always say, like, as athletes, we have to be used to change. It's something that we can't really, like, you have to accept change, and it's hard for a lot of people to do that. And it's one of those things that's like the biggest fear in the world is change. And as athletes, you kind of have to be like, I'm going to be here. Like, we talk about overseas athletes, like, you're on a different contract every year in a different country, half the time on a different continent, and you have to just bounce and bounce and bounce and be adaptable and deal with change. You have proven how adaptable you are, and you've maintained your integrity, you've maintained your goals, and you maintain like what you're trying to do, which is very admirable. And to be honest, it's like, it's incredible that you have taken on this persona of this like social media, this online presence, and built this entire community. And not only that, but you've entered into this NIL market, and we've talked about the NIL market before, which is not easy for everyone to get into, because you have everyone, once you're a college athlete, you're like, okay, who's like, where's my deals? But you have a lot of work to do yourself to get those deals in place. What did you have to do to build up your NIL market, and did that social media presence help?
Great question. First of all, thank you for all the kind words you just said. And I just had a call yesterday. There's this company called Athletic, and they're kind of like a NIL
Yeah,
market space. And they're asking me like what I do as an athlete, like how do I get my deals? So that
yeah,
perfectly aligns with like the question you're asking. And the number one thing I said was, you have to get these deals yourself.
yeah.
For me, I don't go to a Power 5 school. I don't go to this huge school. I don't play a big sport like football, basketball, soccer. I'm a track athlete. No one watches track, if I'm being honest. I go to a small school that when I tell people, hey, I go to Belmont, what's Belmont? You don't know what Belmont is. And so I'm finding a lot of these stereotypes and these odds, just because right now the idea in NIL is that you have to be one of 3 things: a huge social media personality already that you already had to have developed before NIL,
Hmm.
that people are like, oh, like she has 1 million followers, everyone already knows who you are. You have to be at a top Power 5 school, where it's like, okay, now you have collectives that are paying for you to get deals,
Hmm.
or you just have to have like someone like that just knows how to connect you with that. So something that I've been doing to help me secure, currently I have done 19 NIL deals. I have 3 pending, and I got them
Nice.
all on my own.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. And the biggest thing I did, how I started, was Instagram DM. This
Okay.
sounds very basic, but it worked out for me in the beginning. Now it's a little bit harder to manage as NIL has become more picky in who they're looking for.
Uh-huh.
But my first deal was with First Forum supplements.
Yes.
I've used them for years. They're huge in the CrossFit space. If you do CrossFit, you know the company.
Hmm.
And so reached out to them on DM. Hey, love your supplements. Love to work with you. Cool. They sent me Taylor. Taylor's the director of the scholarships and all that. And I had a conversation with her. We really connect, and they got me onto a 5-month deal with them. So that was awesome. And that was honestly one of my dream deals to ever have. And so I was on an all-time high. I'm like, cool, like I just gotta keep going on to these DMs. But then it wasn't all rainbows after that, because then it's like, okay, now you have people ghosting you, you have people not responding, and
Yes.
you have to be very persistent to
Uh-huh.
be very good in NIL. Because then I have on my notes app, I'll write out the company. And then I
Yeah.
have emojis that mean different things. And so I'll be like, okay, the date I contacted them. And then I'll recheck after 2 days. I'll be like, okay, it's been 2 days since I reached out to them. I got to follow up. And then I'll follow up. I'll write that down that I followed up on that day. So I could keep track of how many times I DM'd them. And I'm like, okay, it's been 2 days again. So now it's been 4 days. They still haven't responded. Okay, I got to respond to them again. So I
Yeah.
keep DMing, bombarding these companies until they reach out to me, because you have to be very persistent or they're not going to listen to you. I've noticed that there's companies I've only sent one message to, they never respond. They'll just like seeing the message.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm like,
Those are the
okay,
worst. Yeah.
yeah,
Left me
it's
on
the worst
red.
feeling.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know you saw me, but you're
Yeah.
not seeing me.
Uh-huh.
And so I just keep reaching out till they give me a message. Another thing that I've been doing, which is very unique, you're not going to hear a lot of athletes doing this. LinkedIn. LinkedIn. I've been,
You do run LinkedIn. For a college athlete, you run LinkedIn. I see so many of your posts. I'm like, she's working LinkedIn right now.
thank you. And that's something that I think is going to be the move in 2024. If athletes can realize that LinkedIn is the new place to be, I think they'll be a lot more successful, because I've started LinkedIn 6 weeks ago. I had probably like 18 connections. I now have over 1,300 connections after 6 weeks. And for those who aren't on LinkedIn, like that's pretty impressive, because
That's
you can
very
only connect
impressive.
with about 100 people a week.
Yeah.
And so I've been on it, connecting with everyone I know, reaching out to people. And I've had companies reach out to me on there, because that's where all the decision makers are. That's where the
Yes.
CEOs. And they're finding my content, they're seeing who I am, and they're like, okay, like we found an athlete, we like what she's doing, we want to work with her. I just had the CEO of Spikeball. Do you know the Spikeball, where you have little
Yes.
kids?
Yes.
He reached out to me. He was like, hey, like just love to send you a little product if you're interested. I was like, cool, like,
Yeah.
here's my address.
I was gonna say, get me back to my beach roots.
Real. And I was like, man, that is kind of random, but at the same time it wasn't, because I'm marketing myself in a way that's like, hey, I know who I am, I
Yeah.
know who I'm looking for. And when people see my page, they're like, okay, they know what to expect.
Yeah.
And so that's been a cool thing. I've been able to find a lot of emails through that, which leads me to my third one, which is emailing.
Yes.
I work really hard to find people's emails, because it's not easy to find the director of marketing's emails. There's probably like 5 different people that work in marketing, and it's hard to
Yup.
find which one that you need to contact. And so that's that's been interesting. The last one that's helped some is marketplaces.
Okay.
I think that's a great place to start for athletes. I use marketplaces, like the top 3 right now are Post Game, Mogul, and Open Doors. And I
Mhm.
have used like smaller marketplaces like Athletic and 98 Strong, but those are the main ones I've done deals on too.
That's incredible. Just the overall your business sense at such a young age to be able to understand where the market is going. Because that's what I say. I felt like we did a lot of stuff. I was putting all my content on Instagram, and it would just go, and I'd be like, it got me a lot of athletes. It got me a lot of athletes who were interested in what we were doing. But once I really hit LinkedIn, that's what got, like you said, it gets you in front of the decision makers. It gets you in front of the people with money. And then you're like, oh, this is much easier process, because now I have the athletes here, but I have the money here. And now I can kind of combine the two and create this whole entire huge network. And that's what you've done. It's taken me a while to figure that out. You figured it out at a very young age. And on top of that, you like it's just because you've kind of described your day, but you must be the busiest human being in the world, because A, you are able to manage all of these different things and keep up and, you know, keep journals of who you're contacting and what have you. But on top of that, like with basketball, you worked on drills, and I was like, okay, here's where I'm going to get the ball in the game, and I'm going to go and I'm going to do this, and this is the drill that I'm going to work on. They'd separate like the guards and the bigs, and then the you know, the threes and fours. Then you have what you're doing, where you're running and throwing and doing, you know, all these different events. Like, how does even practice go when you're like, okay, I have to run the 800, I got to throw a javelin, I got to throw this, I got to throw shit, like I got to run, jump hurdles. Like, your practices, do you work on one a day, or is it just like every day there's like a structure? Because if they were just like, okay, today you're gonna jump over this hurdle, then throw this thing, it's like I feel like I'm on Double Dare. I'm like, what in the world am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
there's so
And so
much.
it's interesting because right now I'm currently only a thrower, so I only do all the throwing events except for javelin, because I used to do that at my other school, but
Yeah,
now I'm strictly just more like circle events, a shot put, a
nice.
little bit of hammer throw, weight throw, all that. But in high school, I used to do everything. I was a pentathlete, so I did all 5 events along with relays and some discus.
Jesus.
And so I was just, because I had that background in CrossFit where
Yeah.
if you don't know what CrossFit is, it's a mix of everything. So
Yes.
it's biking, cycling, running, rowing. And so it just felt normal, or just very normal for me to be
Vomiting,
like, okay,
vomiting was in there somewhere.
yeah. And so I was like, oh, yeah. And so I'm like, cool, like I'm used to doing all these different things. And so
Yeah.
when I was recruited to Austin Pete, I was originally recruited as a multi.
Hmm.
And so I went to the school. They wanted me to focus on throwing, so make sure I'm a very strong thrower. Then the next year I was going to be there, I was going to then transition as a multi. Okay, then start doing, the hurdles, the 800, all that stuff. But then I transferred. And then I was transferred, they were like, hey, like we already have a lot of multis, but we see you as a strong thrower. So,
Nice.
okay. But thank you for like seeing that I do have a very strict schedule, because I am busy. I am trying to master my day, because you only have so many hours in the day, and I want to make sure that I utilize that as best as I
Yes.
can, because I'm like, okay, I want to do this and this and this. As a student athlete, you already have your day pre-filled for you. You
Yeah.
already have things that you don't get to plan. You have classes, you have practice, you have schedule and lifts. I don't get to plan. That's just part of me being here. Then you already have that limited chunk of free time, and you're like, okay, how do I make the most out of this? Yes, I could do this. Yes, I could do this. Okay, what's the most important out of that list?
Yeah.
And one of the things that NIL has taught me that people don't talk about, this is the number one thing people don't talk about when you do NIL deals, is it teaches you life skills.
Yes.
I've learned so many life skills by doing NIL deals on my own. I learned how to write up emails. I learned how to negotiate with people. I learned how to have like one-on-one conversations with people through Zoom, because
Yeah.
now you're not going to see everyone in person. Now
Yep.
you need to understand how to talk to people online. And
Yes.
I've mastered those skills through this art of what's called NIL, which I'm very thankful for, because yes, you could have an agent do it for you, which I'm currently looking for an agent because it is very busyful and
Yeah.
overwhelming at times, but it is a really useful skill.
And you've built this incredible network of people. So when you are done, whenever that is, as an athlete, you still have this huge network of people who recognize you and know that you have these skills, you have these abilities, and that you are A, relatable, and B, extremely employable. And that just creates, because athletes in general are relatable and employable, but you've kind of taken it a step further because you also have this sense, you've also gone through the trenches of the business world, where that takes some time, and you've done that at a young age. So when you go out into the real world, you're like, I have all of these skills, and you're someone's going to be like, Sabrina, you're gonna be someone who everyone's gonna be fighting for, Sabrina, when you eventually get done your athletic career.
Yes, I appreciate it, because part of, being in college is figuring out what you want to do in your career.
Yeah,
And for me, I don't know what I want to do in my career. I've been talking to a lot of different people trying to figure that out. And through LinkedIn, I've been meeting lots of people that are doing the jobs I think are interesting, or I would consider being like, okay, like I would do that as a career.
Yeah.
I talked to them. I asked them, what is it like doing your job? How'd you get there? What is your
Yeah.
background, your history? Like, what did it take for you to get there? And they'll tell me all about it. Cause, you know, if you're in a job and someone asks you what it's like, you're not going to tell them, no, I'm not going to tell you what it's like. People love to share their journey.
Yeah.
And so I've been talking to all these different people, then I'm realizing there's jobs I did not even know existed. And
Wait,
like
you
I
can
was
get paid for that?
real. And for example, I was talking to Christine Lawrence, shout out to her. She used to work as the director of analytics for WWE.
Okay.
And super cool. And she was telling me about what she does in her job. And I'm like, you get paid for that? That's a job. And she's like, yeah, like it's really cool. And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. That is so cool. And so I'm at a point where I don't want to settle on telling people this is what I want to do. Because I
Yeah.
don't want to limit myself to being okay, one like tunnel vision when
Yes.
there's so many other things out there. And another thing people are telling me is that the job that they currently do, they didn't even go to college for that.
Yeah.
They switch their jobs like halfway through after college. They do this, they go through this for 10 years. I don't know, they're 30 now. They're like, you know what? I'm gonna do public speaking instead.
Yeah.
What? That's so
Like,
cool.
okay. Well,
And it's
it's just the athletic community. I mean, we talked about adaptability and you're able to adapt. So what you're describing, that funnel of like, I want to look at the world here and see what's out there, because a lot of people do become laser focused on this one thing. And this is what I want to do. And there's so many other options out there that you would probably enjoy more. So just having that what is, I don't even know what adaptability to be like, I could do this,
mhm.
this, and then just see what you like best. Options are good. So I think that's just a great mindset that you have. That is, it's really fun to hear. Like I said, at a young age, I've said that about 30 times, but shit, when I was a sophomore in college, there's not much I was thinking about in these terms.
For sure, yeah. I would say I'm definitely not like the rest. You know, I have a very entrepreneurship mindset. I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, what can I do that's different? What can I do that stands out? And I don't want to just fit in with the rest of the people. I'm like, okay, yes, you could have your college fun. And, you know, I do have my share of like college experiences, but
Exactly.
I don't want to miss out on that. But it is about finding a good balance where you're like, okay, what am I in college for? To gain experience and to ultimately get a job. And for me, that's like, okay, my parents are paying for my college and I do have a scholarship. It's like, okay, part of NIL for me is to get money so that my parents don't have to pay for all of my tuition that they can't all pay for by
Exactly.
themselves. We have to take out loans to pay for my college. I don't want my parents to have to take out loans. So part of that is being able to get the money so I could afford college.
I love the responsibility. Sabrina, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Just like we said, it's fun just hearing your story. But you have a great way about you. You have a great mindset about you, and you're going to go really far in this world. And we're excited to see where everything takes you. And I'm going to actually currently start making a video of why South Jersey is the best place to live. And maybe we can update tourism in this area.
You
Two,
should.
2 hours from DC, an hour and a half from New York, 45 minutes from the shore, 10 minutes from Philly. It's a great place to live. So let's see if I can get anyone to come move here just based on my YouTube videos.
This gotta be really convincing reasons.
I'm going to. I'm getting 10. I'm getting 10 solid ones. I'm going to think them up.
Perfect. And put some visuals and you'll be set.
All right, perfect. Well, Sabrina, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. This has been the
Awesome.
Overseas Famous podcast with Sabrina Oostburg. We'll see you guys next week.